All right, so here's my Zero SR 2018 with the 14.4 kilowatt battery. So I've had this thing for a little bit over a month, and I put around 500 or so miles. The last couple of weeks, I actually haven't ridden it. I just rode it today, but prior to that, I hadn't ridden it, for some other reasons. But anyway, so I'm doing basically a month or a month plus review, 500-mile review. It's gonna be a quick one. Won't talk too much, hopefully not. So overall, the impressions of the bike is I like it, but there are some quirks, and it's not just about the range. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So all the bike, it's pretty fun to ride. The torque on this thing is just fantastic. It's like torqueier than pretty much anything out there. I mean, this thing has more torque than I think it has more torque than the Goldwing. This bike has around 115 or 114 pounds of torque. I think a Goldwing only has about 108 or something like that, or 110. So tons of torque. But the power delivery when you twist the throttle, and this is one of the things I don't like about it, is when you twist the throttle, it doesn't just instantly give you all that torque. It kind of eases into it. It's sort of like a turbo lag. It kind of eases into the power. And I think the reason why Zero did that is because if it gives you that instant 115 or whatever it is amount of torque, you'll loop the bike. You'll instantly be on your back with the bike on top of you. So they kind of ease into it. So when you give it throttle, it doesn't matter if you give it full throttle or half throttle, it kind of eases into it. And all of a sudden, when it eases in and it gets going and the bike gets going, it just like pushes in and it kicks in and you're like, whoa, and it really it feels like it wants to pull your arm off, and your body gets pulled back. The thing that what I don't like is that usually on a gas, on an ice bike, even with a powerful bike, you do that and it kind of, because on an ice bike it has to rev up to get to the power, right? So in a way it kind of eases in too. But usually when you do that, the throttle kind of matches the rev a little bit. It doesn't lag as much. It feels pretty, as far as the responsiveness, it's very responsive and very instantaneous. Whereas this one is not that responsive. It has that little bit of a lag. So I sort of don't like that. One of the things I noticed that I had to do is I'm like, wherever I want to take off fast, and I'm like full throttle or half throttle, and it's like ease into it, and all of a sudden it's like too much power. Then I have to actually off. Let's say I just go halfway, I still have to go off of it to get it back. On an ice bike, I don't have to do that. On an ice bike, I kind of know wherever position I'm at. I know, and because of the gears. So you have the gears. You know where you're at. With this thing, you don't. It's like you're never quite sure where you're at, even though you could be at half throttle, and it could be a little bit more or a little bit less than what you were at a moment earlier, or depending on the situation. So it's kind of like it's like the difference between driving an automatic versus driving a manual transmission on a car. On an automatic, that the foot pedal, the gas pedal, wherever that range is, sometimes you might go halfway or whatever, and it gets to whatever, or you go full and it gets to wherever, and it kind of catches up. Whereas with a manual, within whatever gear, whatever range you give, it has a certain amount of speed. So it's a lot more predictable that way. You basically have more control. Is what I'm trying to get at. More control and more responsiveness. So this thing doesn't have that. So slightly lacking in control and slightly lacking in responsiveness. So that's one of the gripes I have with this. I like the engine. It's air-cooled engine, so that's like virtually no maintenance. The battery's okay. I mean, that's about as big as it fits in here, right? So otherwise it gets too heavy. Bike weighs 415 pounds or whatever it is, 420 or something, somewhere around there. That's about as heavy as I want. I don't really want a heavier bike than that. Actually, ideally I want even less than 400 pounds, but it is what it is. Let's see what else about this bike. The fit wise, it fits like a medium-sized bike. So if you take any 600 class bike, 600, 650 class bike, the fit is about the same. you know, on a, you know, take a naked bike, any naked bike, like a SV650, a CB, you know, CB600 or CB650, whatever it is called now. You know, any of those middleweight bikes, 600 class bikes, and the fit is about the same, and the weight is very similar too. So that's that. But the tires on this are smaller than those bikes. You know, the front is only 110, and the rear is a 140. So basically, the tire size on this is the same as a 300 class bike, and which is fine. It does, you know, doesn't have any problems with losing traction in the rear at least. The rear is fine. I haven't had any issues with the rear, but the front I do, and it's not because it's the size of the tire. I think it's because of the tire itself, and I explained why in my tire review video, which you can watch. Quality of, you know, this bike, the engine's good, battery's good, and the suspension is good. The rest of the bike, not so much. You know, it's the rest of the bike is everything is like kind of cheap. You know, for example, you look at the mirrors. The mirrors are cheap. You know, this side mirror, it keeps on dropping down like this. You know, I'm riding, I adjust it. I'm like, okay, it's good at wherever it is at, and I'm riding. If I hit a pothole, whatever, it just like that. I'm like, what the heck, you know? So I keep constantly have to adjust this side mirror all the time. So, you know, so other little things, the stuff that's not critical is kind of cheap, you know, like the switch gears are not that, you know, it's kind of goofy. For example, this high beam right here, for, you know, the ergonomics on this high beam right here is horrible. It's like, yeah, I can't reach it without having to like let my hand, you know, basically release my grip. And, you know, the horn and the turn signal is fine. I can still have my grip right here, or even the emergency, I can still have my grip. But to reach the high beam, low beam, I actually have to kind of like release my hand like that to really reach this, or I have to kind of release my hand and use my index to switch high beam or low beam. I mean, you can use a little trigger right here, but that's only for, like, you know, if you're warning someone, or if you're gonna quickly pass someone or something like that. But if you wanna go high beam for a while or low beam for a while, then it's you know, it's ergonomic. It's not very, you know, it doesn't work very well. So switch gears, I'm not great fan of. Like instrument panel, this thing is like cheap too. Like all the non-critical stuff is like kind of cheap. You know, the mirror, I said the mirrors. I mean the turn signals are kind of cheap. You know, all these little things here and there is just kind of, it's all kind of cheap. But again, like I said, the stuff that's critical is decent. You know, the electric motor, battery, even the suspension is nice. You know, I like the suspension. Of all the stock bikes I've ever ridden, this bike probably has one of the best stock suspension that I've ever. Actually, it does have the best stock suspension that I've ever owned of all the bikes I've ever owned. But then I've never owned, you know, like really high-end bikes, so can't compare it with that. But you know, all the other bikes I've ever had, this stock suspension is the best I've had. Chassis on this bike is a little bit iffy. I think the main frame is okay, and the fork is okay, because, you know, this fork is the size of this fork is just like any other size. So it's not the fork. What I believe it is the swing arm. So looking at this swing arm, seems like Zero used the same swing arm for all the bikes except for the newer, you know, the newer SRF and SRS. But everything else, you know, the SR, DSR, and their dirt bikes, they all seem to use the same swing arm. And this bike is, you know, this SR here is basically double the weight compared to their FX bike or F bike, whatever it's called, their dirt bike. And it's the same swing arm. You know, that bike being half the weight, you know, that swing arm is probably fine. But this bike being double the weight, this swing arm is I think it's a little bit flexy. So when I corner really hard or when I brake hard, I can feel the chassis it gets kind of squirrely underneath me, and I believe it's the swing arm. So yeah. So I wish they had a beefier swing arm. And you look at the swing arm, you know, compared to like the 600 class bikes, you know, middleweight bikes, compared their swing arm to this swing arm, all the other bikes are, like from Honda, Yamaha, whoever, all the swing arm is like much beefier, more massive. It's just more burlier. This one is just kind of flimsy. So so I think that's the reason why when I'm cornering hard, I can feel that squirreliness, that flex under me. And so again, I believe that's the swing arm. I believe the main frame is okay. I don't really notice much of that going on. Let's see what else with this bike. I could point out that's kind of good and kind of bad. I'm still playing around with the suspension, so 500 miles in, it's not enough time to to really gauge the suspension. So let's look at the range. Actually, I'll do the range in a different review. So on the Zero, you have Eco, Sport, and Custom, right? That you could set, right? So right now it's Custom. You set it on Sport right there, or Eco, and I normally have it on Custom. And on Custom, you could adjust the torque power. You could adjust the top speed. You could adjust the regen braking, and you could adjust regen braking while you actually have the there's a difference between regen braking and regen braking. Basically it's a two-stage regen braking. The first stage is just when you let off the throttle, it will regen brake a little bit. Then the second stage is if you actually activate the brakes, where the brake switch, the brake light switch activates, that will regen even stronger, right? So on the Custom, and this just happens once so far, and actually it happened today, because on the Custom setting, I have it set at 62 miles an hour, basically 100 kilometers an hour. So that basically comes out to 62 miles an hour. On a one ride, just from starting it, the whole ride, it was topping out at about 62, right, give or take a little bit. Then, and it's right before I got to this intersection, it was more or less a straightaway, right? And it was topping out at 62-ish, more or less. Got to that intersection, waited for the light, made my left turn. Then I accelerated full throttle, and I was like, and it was going, and it kept on going. I'm like, man, it's kind of fast for 62. And then I looked down, it was 65. I was like, what the heck? I'm not 65. It was 75. I was like, what the heck? How did that happen? That was weird. And after that, I just tried it again and again, and the same thing was going past its max speed. So that was kind of weird. So anyway, so I put over, had to do some errands, and when I came back out, started it back up again, and it went back to normal. It was topping out back out at the 65. So that was, I'm not sure what that was about. I don't know if that was just some kind of error in the bike itself, or a bug in the app. At the time, I did not have the app on. The app was not wasn't on. Usually when you set it on Custom, in the app, once you turn off the app, or you close the app, whatever set you have in the app, the bike will remember that setting. So I had the app off, and it still that one incident, it jumped over more, speed wise, it went more than it was programmed for. So that was kind of odd. I was like, what the heck? Let's see other things about this bike. The ergonomics wise, the bar position is still kind of weird for me, and I mentioned this, I think, when I did the initial review. It's just that I don't know what it is, but something about the angle. I'm not sure if it's a sweep angle or downward angle or what, but something's slightly off. For as far as the naked bike goes, this bike, more so than any other naked bikes that I've had, standard seating position bike that I've had, this bike leans me forward more than any other one. If I've had a CB600, I had my Yamaha XSR 900. I've had a bunch of different Hondas, ridden a bunch of other bikes, and this bike, again, it gives me more forward lean than anything else. So that was kind of so something that I'm not quite used to. And I think I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I hadn't ridden this thing for about 2 weeks, and I wasn't used to that. Wasn't using that forward lean. Actually, my upper body actually got kind of sore. My arms actually kind of sore by the end of the ride. I did probably like a 50-mile ride or 60-mile ride. And then my upper body got a little sore from not usually leaning over that much. Let's see. So yeah, so things I'm critical of is the wheel spring arm. You know, it could have better tires. Everything's kind of chintzy, but that's understandable because the main expense of this bike is actually the battery. This is the most expensive thing, is the battery. I guess the second most expensive thing is probably the motor or the engine. Well, yeah, motor, not engine, motor. So because of those costs, everything else has to be kind of cheap or lower cost to. Otherwise, the bike will be a lot more expensive than it already is. And it is, without a doubt, it is an expensive bike. If you buy it new, I bought it used, and even used, it's still, still pretty pricey. Let's see what else about this bike. So yeah, so I think that's about it. So as far as range, I will talk about that on a different video. Okay, all right. Thanks for watching.